There were so many names. Essie Bernstein, Frida Velikowski, Antonia Coletti, Ida Brooks, Mary Leventhal, and 141 more. 146 people out of 500 workers died in the fire that day. Their families or their boyfriends went to the morgues and the hospitals and took their bodies away for burial. But there were 7 who were never identified. Maybe they didn't have any families to come and look for them. Most of them were the daughters of Russian immigrants, from Jewish Russian immigrants. But some were Italian, some English, some Irish. The eldest was 40, and the youngest 11. It wasn't lawful for that little girl to be working, but her family needed her wages. You see, when we came from the old country, we were told that the streets were paved with gold. Well, of course, we didn't believe that. But when we got here, we found that in the city, there wasn't even a bit of dirt to grow a cabbage in, or to keep a couple of hens. We had to buy everything we ate, everything we wore, and the rent. We older women would have gone to work so the girls could go to school. But they only hired the young ones. Those girls worked 12 and a half hours a day with only 1 day off a week. And if there was a rush order, they worked longer hours with no day off. And they only earned a few dollars a week. They weren't allowed to talk to each other, except during the half-hour lunchtime. It was just work, work, work. And then, before they were allowed to leave, each one of them was searched to make sure they hadn't stolen a piece of cloth or a bit of thread or maybe a needle. The doors were locked so that nobody could leave early. What was a shirtwaist? Oh, it was a woman's blouse. It had a high neck and long sleeves, and it tucked into your skirt. Some of them had mutton leg sleeves with wide shoulders and tight below the elbow. They made cotton ones for working girls, and silk ones with lace and embroidery for rich ladies. They were all the rage. Now, a few years before the fire, the Triangle workers did go on strike for better wages and shorter hours and better conditions. In fact, thousands of garment workers in New York City went on strike at that time, led by the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. They called it the Uprising of 20,000. Those girls, they were arrested and beaten and jailed, but they kept on striking for 14 weeks. By then, many of the smaller factories had agreed to some of the demands. But Triangle, they were one of the largest. They never did. Those girls went back to work with nothing gained. Did you know that some of those smaller factories were in the same building, but because of a shorter hours agreement, those workers had all gone home by the time the fire began on Saturday evening. If it had been otherwise, more people would have died. Did you know that the 10-story ash building, the Triangle Factory, was in the top 3 stories? That building was supposed to be fireproof, one of the safest buildings in the city. The city building inspector said so. It had 2 elevators, 2 staircases, and a fire escape. But the elevators stopped working when the fire began, and the staircases were very narrow and filled with smoke. Besides, most of the doors into the stairs and the fire escape were locked.